Welcome to RNC Watch TV. Today we're talking about Our Flag Means Death.
Hells yeah.
So I watched season 1 pretty much when it came out last year. Thought it was amazing. Was super excited for season 2, but you had not watched season 1, so we've been watching season 1.
And it has been freaking amazing. Yeah, I don't even know where to start. It's just a really nice alternate take on like a pirate show. Like normally I don't like, it's just, I like that it focuses on relationships, it seems like, which is something that I think you pointed out, although you were pointing out that it was a bunch of like considering, or at least to societal norms, atypical relationships, which in my opinion makes it awesome.
Yeah, I was saying that in season 1, spoilers ahead, maybe with the exception of like, what's the main guy's name? Sneed's wife's boyfriend?
That was the one late edition, and it was only late because we watched episode 10 and 9 out of order. Well, you had seen it, I hadn't, but...
With that exception, there are no relationships in the show that are romantic relationships in the show that are heterosexual and monogamous, which is super cool since our culture pushes heterosexuality and mononormativity so intensely. So to see this kind of representation is amazing.
Yeah, it's very different in that regard, and I think it's very refreshing that that's how they wrote in the relationships. And I mean, at the end of the day, most of the story at this point seems like which again, spoilers, is like we just started season 2, and it seems like it's mostly driven by Blackbeard and Sneed's relationship, or at least the lack thereof, and fallout that seems to really be messing with Blackbeard. Although at this point, instead of making him break down, it seems like he's on the warpath. But yeah, like you said, he's on his villain arc.
He's in his villain era. Yes. I think one thing that I really like about it, I've been thinking a lot about, like, I don't know, we've been listening to Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend, the podcast, as we go to sleep. And so, Conan talks about comedy and has comedians on, and he has described his comedy as like silly. And I think that's a really good description of his comedy. And I think, like, as a very serious person, who I think has a lot of anxiety, that silliness is like a really important counterweight antidote. And I think that, like, one thing I really like about Our Flag Means Death is that it takes this very, I don't know, it's like, on the one hand, piracy is like very serious, right? Like, you're stealing and raping and pillaging and killing and maiming. It's all very life or death. But it's also always been kind of silly. Like, piracy in the popular culture, pirates, International Talk Like a Pirate Day. Like, I think it just takes that kind of dichotomy and just adds a queer element, and then takes it to its like extremes, where there's like extreme violence but extreme silliness. And even with like the relationships, it's like extreme heartbreak and sadness, but then it also makes fun of the overwrought ways that we respond to, rejection and heartbreak.
Yeah, I definitely agree about the silliness. I think that's one of the things that really impresses me about the show is it takes a lot to mix arcs together that like are at one moment incredibly silly and at the next moment incredibly serious, like, and heartfelt. And I feel like this show does a really good job of mashing that together and like pulling it off.
Yeah, like, I think, for example, when Steed is having a conversation with his wife, and they talk about like he says, what's it like to be in love? And she describes it. And then he says, I think I have found love. And she
Oh my
says, what's her
God.
name?
That was so well written.
It was really heartfelt. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, executed like perfectly, in my opinion, at least.
Mm-hmm. And then the silliness of like, they've got what was it, a leopard? I don't know, jungle cat. And then he gets hit by a carriage, and then a piano falls off.
I'd actually forgotten about, like, I remember, I knew they were setting up for something involving a piano when they showed them, like, it's like, yeah, he paid us to only raise it halfway, but like by the time that they got to like the point where like everything else had been so extreme and played out, I totally forgot about the piano until it fell like on the dude's head.
Oh, I didn't even think like, oh, I'm gonna see a piano later.
I even picked up on it, but it was so just absurd, but like a good absurd that like I was actually surprised even after like being pretty sure they were gonna drop a piano on the dude. Like I loved that sequence. It was so ridiculous.
I also feel like the show deals with class in a really interesting way. I think that it's more upfront about class than a lot of shows are. For example, I'm just thinking of like, okay, the guy who's the twin brother of the guy he kills first, his classmate, he says to, I wish I could remember better, but he essentially says like, Steed is part of my world, and Blackbeard is part of a different world. And just the whole episode of the French people and the party and Blackbeard trying to like fit in, the whole issue of like Steed renouncing his wealth, you're only going to be a spoiled little rich boy. I don't know. It just like deals with class in a really explicit, like intentional way, which I think is cool.
Yeah, I liked that, and I liked how like the whole arc of like passive aggression and how Sneed essentially used passive aggression to like burn down the ship inadvertently. I liked that arc. I don't really have much to add to the class part, but I did enjoy the arc that you were referencing.
I think it's like a lot of stories are told, especially like historical stories, are told from the perspective of upper class people, which makes sense. Nobody wants to put themselves in a story in which they're like, the peons of the era. And we just know a lot more about the lives of the upper class because they left a much more robust historical record because they could read and write, for one. And they needed to because they had like property to keep up with, transactions to record. But so a lot of it either just ignores lower class people or treats them in a very like, I don't know, I'm thinking of like Downton Abbey, where it's like kind of a precious way, almost like they're pets. Like, I don't know. I can't really articulate what I mean here, but I like how this show does neither. Like, it doesn't ignore people who are not upper class, but it also doesn't like treat them with kid gloves. I think like the best example was like the conversations between the pirates in season 1 where they're like, yeah, this is not like a choice for us. This is what we do because it's the best of a limited range of options. And it reminds me of sex work, honestly. Obviously, I don't think sex work is like piracy and the like, how it impacts society or the moral implications, but they're both like stigmatized and illegal in most places. And I think that the experience of someone who chooses sex work from a variety of attractive options is very different from the experience of most people who choose sex work, who do so with a much narrower range of much less attractive options. And so, like, yeah, like, we're both pirates, you know? It's like, yeah, we're both sex workers. I mean, yes, but class is still important. Power is still important.
I never thought about Sneed and versus the other pirates and Steed versus the other pirates in that way, but that is an interesting way to look at it. He's there because he wants to be versus his entire crew. Huh.
Well, they make it explicit. Like, that's literally an
Yeah.
explicit part of the dialogue. Which
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
is really cool.
Yeah, no, I remember the part of dialogue you're talking about now, but it, like, for whatever reason I'd forgotten about it. But no, that makes it a lot more interesting now that you're pointing it back out, because I totally did not think about that. Yeah, no, it is a really good show. This is a random thought. There is one dark pirate thing that I've seen. Ironically, Pirates of the Caribbean 2. That was the darkest pirate movie I think I've ever seen, for some reason. If you've never seen it. It's like Disney realized, it was like someone made fun of them for making the first one lighthearted, and they're like, oh, you want serious? Here's the darkest Disney movie you'll ever watch for some reason.
Huh.
Random. I don't know. Anyway. But no, I really like this. Our Flag Means Death. Our Flag Means Death has been delightful so far.
Yeah, it's really good. It's got like a really good like density of jokes, and it's really relatable. It's just queer as fuck, you know, but not in a like precious, overbearing, preachy way. Just in a like,
It seems seamlessly mixed into the story like it should be.
it's not mixed into the story.
It's not mixed.
It is the story.
Yeah.
But it's seamless.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, like these are just relationships. They just happen to be queer, but also they are different in certain ways. So yeah, it
doesn't go out of its way to highlight. It's like, look, we like, yeah, I don't know. It is so well done.
Yeah, it's very well done. I really like it. If you haven't seen it, you should check it out. Season 1. We can't vouch for season 2 because we're like halfway through the first episode, but it's probably awesome too. I don't know. I'm excited to report back.
Oh yeah, totally check it out. And I appreciate you showing it to me, because I do not think I would have approached it otherwise. I don't even think I'd heard of it, honestly. When you said the name, I think I'd heard it in passing before, but I never realized what it was or even about. So
I've always liked pirates. I don't know. I think the whole like outlaw thing appeals to me. I mean, pirates are just cool. So yeah, gay pirates, I'm there.
I do also, I really do like the apparel choices and costumes for Blackbeard's crew. Like, this is also another random thing. What's this Blackbeard's first mate? What's his name? Izzy. I still can't unsee Izzy as like the head of like Chernobyl and the other HBO miniseries, if you've seen it, because it's the same actor. I was like, where have I heard this voice before? He plays like one of the incompetent plant managers in Chernobyl. But also, like, their attire and like that black like leather look is so well done. It's random, but it's like they look badass as hell.
They do look badass. I don't know. Leather at sea seems like a choice.
It doesn't seem like a necessarily realistic one, but they did make them look cool as fuck.
They look cool. And yeah.
That's all I've got.
Yeah. I did see Chernobyl, but I will say casting wise, Will Arnett, A+.
I didn't. That was one of the very few times that I haven't picked out Will Arnett. I think it was the hair they gave him and the mustache. I just like, normally I can spot him pretty quickly, but that one was a pleasant surprise.
It's the voice. The voice gives him away.
Yeah, I could totally see that. And once he said that, I'm like, is it? It kind of makes sense because I can hear it in the voice now.
Anyway, any more to say about this?
No, I think that's it.
Thanks for watching.
See y'all next week.